Hi all, Ada here from Hans & Johns. As always, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I'm in deepest, darkest North Yorkshire. I'm in a little town called Pickering. Some of you might know it. And I'm at a church called St. Peter's and St. Paul's. Now this was built in 1140, but it is on the site of a former Saxon church and it has some incredible wall paintings. And as you can probably tell, it's pouring down with rain, so let's get inside and have a look around. This Grade 1 listed building sits atop a hill at the east end of the town of Pickering. Its origins stretch back over 1,000 years to the Anglo-Saxon period, although most of the structure you see today was built and rebuilt between the 12th and 15th centuries. As I step inside the church and we head over to the left and we find the church font. Now this is one of the oldest parts of the church. This is a Saxon era font and it would have been on the site long before the Normans rebuilt in about 1140. Now you might notice some damage to it, and this is believed to have occurred during the turbulence of the mid-17th century Civil War. And leaning up against the wall over here are some remnants of some Saxon gravestones. But up on the wall there's something very interesting, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Robert King and his son Nicholas. Now these two gentlemen were natives of Pickering and they played a very fascinating role across the Atlantic. Nicholas King was amongst one of the first surveyors of the new city of Washington, D.C. in the late 18th century, helping lay out America's capital city in the early years. His father, Robert, also worked in that role before he returned to England. So here in this tiny Yorkshire parish church is a direct link to the mapped streets of America's capital, a remarkable global connection for this quiet market town. And then we have a look at this beautiful wooden screen. That's the entrance into the bell tower, and there's some photographs here on the side. Unfortunately, with the light reflecting behind me, it's really difficult to see them. Now, what makes this church really incredibly special are these beautiful wall paintings, and they're considered by many scholars to be some of the most important medieval wall paintings in Northern Europe. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of these paintings. If you're really interested in them, please do pause and look at them in more detail. And there's also a lot more information on St. Peter and Paul's Pickering Church website, so check that out if you'd like to know a little bit more in detail. These murals were painted in the mid-15th century, likely to be about 1450 to 1470. Directly onto the plaster. They would have originally been rich in colour with gold leaf and had a narrative meaning for parishioners at a time when most could not read. On the north wall you can follow a procession of figures and scenes. This includes a towering St. George slaying the dragon and a powerful depiction of St. Christopher, who is the patron of travellers. In other panels you'll see the martyrdom of St. Edmund and the dramatic death of St. Thomas Becket, and other saints whose stories offered protection and inspiration. And here's St. George slaying the dragon. Opposite on the south wall the sequence continues with the life and trials of St. Catherine of Alexandria, scenes of mercy and vivid images of the Passion, Crucifixion and even the descent into hell, complete with writhing figures and the jaws of a dragon-like creature. These paintings, like many others, would have been whitewashed during the Reformation and were only rediscovered in 1852 during repairs, but the vicar at the time was not very happy with them and had them covered back up again. But gratefully now they have been restored, and they're very, very clear, aren't they? As we move eastwards, you notice the beautiful rood screen, which of course separated the nave from the chancel, and this beautiful carved screen was installed during Victorian restoration but it echoes the medieval tradition of dividing the space. And on the left here, we're going to have a look at some beautiful stone corbels and carved faces along the arch. Many are grotesque, some of them look a bit whimsical, and these figures were often intended to ward off evil or to remind worshippers of the spiritual world beyond. And just to the left of the rood screen, below the lectern, is this beautiful alabaster figure of a knight. He wears the mail and plate armour of 1340 to 1350. The arms on the shield are those of Bruce, since a licence was given to Sir William Bruce to establish a chantry chapel in the church in 1337. There can be little doubt that this effigy is that of Sir William. And as we walk up towards the altar, there's loads of memorial plaques lining the walls, but you can really see the Victorian restoration work in here, from the floor tiles to the beautifully carved choir stalls and that beautiful organ there. And here we can see more evidence of the American connection, because on the north wall here of the sanctuary is a memorial tablet to Mary, Nicholas and Robert King of Pickering. Now Robert and Nicholas, as I mentioned earlier, helped and succeeded in surveying Washington DC, and underneath are brass plaques commemorating the Brotherhood in Arms of 1917 and England and America's alliance in the Red Cross during the Great War. It is these memorials which place this church very firmly on the American trail. The east window is a 20th century abstract design by R.G. Sims, architect, which represents the Ascension, although it's difficult to see in this light. And just to the right hand side of the altar here, we find the piscina. And a piscina was a stone basin with a drain used for washing sacred vessels after Holy Communion. And here on the south wall we have a triple cedilla, and this is where members of the clergy would have sat during Mass. They date from the 14th century and they have crocketed gables and 4 fine carved heads, 2 of which perhaps represent an archbishop and maybe a parish priest. Now, this beautifully carved door and screen were done by Alfred Wilson of Pickering in 1923. Beautiful craftsmanship. This part of the church on the south side of the chancel is called the Roucliffe effigies, otherwise known as the Bruce Chapel. And here is a beautiful old monument chest, and it's still got its locks. This is where the clergy say their daily morning and evening prayers, and it is kept apart for private prayer. Beautiful stained glass window there. It was built in 1407, and in a moment we will see the beautiful alabaster effigies. And I think that must have been for doing collections. Maybe it was kept out by the porch. Couldn't find any information on that. But very old, no doubt it's an original. Inside this chapel you will find the effigies of Sir David and Dame Marjorie Roucliffe, and this chapel was added to the church in 1407 specifically as a burial and devotional space for this couple, although I'm not sure if that's correct because I'm sure I've read something completely different, so apologies if it's wrong. Now, this beautiful tomb chest is made of alabaster, and that's a fine stone frequently used in high status funerary monuments. And on top of it you find Sir David and Lady Marjorie, and he is in his full armour and she has a very richly detailed dress. And you can see either side of him there are some figures. I mean, at the feet there's some animals. I gather they're dogs. And at the top it looks like some human figures. They may be their children, or I'm not really sure. If anyone knows, please do let me know in the information. So they originally, when they were built, they would have been gilded and coloured, but much of that surface decoration and paint has worn away over the centuries, but they're still very beautiful. As we head back out into the main body of the church, and just around, tucked away behind this pillar, we're going to find another effigy, but it's very worn. Couldn't find any information about it. Its name probably lost to time, but no doubt it's in the parish records. You can see it was probably another knight because it's quite like the one on the other side. Some more memorials. Some lovely stained glass windows along this section. I appreciate it's very difficult to read the brass plates with the light shining in behind them. I couldn't even read them myself with my naked eye, so apologies for that. And here we have the war memorial. And as we head back outside, I always remember that these places are just not stone, wood and paint. They're living tapestries of history, faith, community and artistry. A place where Saxon worshippers, medieval craftsmen, Victorian restorers and 21st century visitors all intersect. We're going to have a very brief look around the graveyard. The rain really started to come down here, guys, so I'm not going to linger, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you could please like and subscribe and hit the hype button. That's all free, it doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps my little channel. And if you do want to help the channel a little bit more so I can go a little bit further afield, places like Yorkshire, which is nearly 5 hours away from where I live, then help the channel a little bit more, you can hit the buy me a coffee button in the description below, and then that helps me pay for petrol, etc., so I can go a little bit further afield to Yorkshire and other places. So thanks again, and I shall see you for the next one. Might be a hunt, it might be a jaunt.